What do you get when you take a highly successful film and create a sequel for it out of spite, just so you can disrespect the very fans who made that original film the success that it was? You get what you deserve. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think I can say with all confidence at this point that this film broke me. In my initial review, I talked about how the film made me feel numb afterwards, almost indifferent. But the truth is, the more I think about it, and the more that I hear about it, the worse that it gets.
Is it just me? Or is it getting crazier out there?
And of course, we have the apologists out in full force trying to say that the hate for the film is forced. They're saying that people aren't open to unique films. Or they're just flat out using the same old tired excuse of, well, you just don't get it. No, we get it, we just think it sucks. And no amount of mental gymnastics or deflection is going to change that. I think some people forget that the very first Joker film was seen as unconventional and not following typical comic book movie formulas. And yet somehow the majority of people seem to embrace it. Now, how do you explain that? So is the real problem here that people aren't open to unique takes on iconic characters? Because history tells us otherwise. This is one of the only movies in recent memory where a majority of the critics and audience members actually agree. Normally there's a disconnect there. But in this case, with Joker 2, there is agreement. How do you explain that?
I don't believe it!
Are all of those people haters? Are all of those people too stupid to get it? No, what we have here, as always, are the real contrarians trying to use toxic positivity to dismiss another person's opinion. And then if you want to take it a step further, we have some people saying that they didn't really like the movie, but they like the fact that it angered people that they don't agree with. I don't know who needs to hear this, but making people angry should not be a goal that any movie tries to achieve. Because let's face it, from a business perspective, it makes absolutely no sense. And it also says a lot about the lack of creativity in modern Hollywood, where people seem more concerned with angering people than they are writing competent stories. The truth is that you are already fighting an uphill battle by trying to release this movie, with half the people asking, does this sequel even need to exist to begin with? But now you have to contend with bad word of mouth that the people involved have nobody to blame but themselves for.
Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
If your goal was to tell a competent story while also turning a profit, which is I think what most movies try to do, then you failed at both miserably. Joker 2 has the lowest cinema score for any comic book movie in history. Now normally, I don't put much stock into numbers like that, but this D cinema score puts Joker 2 below such iconic flops as Madam Web and Morbius. Now, do I personally think that Joker 2 is worse than those two films? No, I do not. But I think it says a lot about what that first film represented and what it meant to people. When it comes right down to it, those involved with making Joker 2 either completely misunderstood the audience they were making that film for, or someone involved actively tried to disregard that audience, and I'm inclined to believe that it's the latter.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
And for the record, we now have Todd Phillips himself confirming that James Gunn had absolutely nothing to do with Joker 2, and that Warner Brothers basically wanted him to continue to do his thing separate from all other DC projects. So the blame for Joker 2 goes squarely on Todd Phillips' shoulders, a man who made a movie to get back at the incels who looked at his Joker as a hero or a masculine icon. Their words, not mine. Meanwhile, absolutely no one who liked the original movie looked at Joker in that way. We just simply like the way that the character was constructed. So how is this working out for Todd Phillips and WB? Getting back at those people who quote-unquote misunderstood his iconic first film. The answer is not good.
I'm having trouble.
Joker 2 is expected to earn around $40 million in the film's domestic opening weekend. This is almost 3 times lower than the first film's opening weekend, and lower than the opening weekends for The Flash, The Marvels, and almost the same as Morbius. For context, the budget was reported to be around $200 million, but we now know that the film would have to make $450 million just to break even, thanks to such things as marketing costs. The film earned $121 million worldwide so far. So what have we all learned from this debacle? I'll tell you what I've learned, and that's that I'm not going to place my faith in people in Hollywood anymore that do not have a prolonged, proven track record. And Todd Phillips definitely does not fit that description.
Why are you the way that you are? Honestly, every time I try to do something fun, you make it not that way.
As far as what can Todd and WB learn from this, the reality of the situation is they've probably learned nothing. Because no matter what happens, no matter how many people tell them that this was the wrong direction to go in, they will refuse all accountability. Todd Phillips will come out and say, yeah, this is my movie 100%. But he's never going to come out and say, yeah, I f***ed up. I f***ed up attacking people who gave me one of my biggest success stories in my career. He'll just use the same excuse that the trolls are using online and say that you guys just didn't get it. And WB is going to be business as usual, even though they are already in debt, and this is not going to help. But why would anyone expect them to change at this point? When it comes right down to it, this failure is not good for comic book movies overall, because I know it's going to send the message to Hollywood that audiences don't like when creatives take chances. But what they don't realize is just because someone is allowed to take chances doesn't mean that it's good. It's not quite that black and white.
That makes sense.
Your film still has to make sense, and your film still has to be of quality, and that, my friends, is where Joker 2 is lacking. It's not enough to subvert expectations in the worst way possible. If you don't believe me, just ask the Star Wars franchise after The Last Jedi. Bottom line, Joker 2 is a complete disaster for WB and DC, and it is a disaster that they couldn't afford to have. If you thought that their overall reputation was in the toilet before, just look at where it is now. They literally took a billion-dollar success story with franchise potential and ran that shit directly into the ground. Basically just turning it into yet another comic book movie flop. It's almost impressive when you think about it. You can't help but feel like this just makes DC and WB look more directionless and incompetent moving forward. And when you put your fandom aside like I have, and just learn to see shit for what it is, this disaster should not come as a surprise to anyone. Because it's just par for the course when you consider how poorly the DC brand has been used recently.
Y'all be cool. Nah.